Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to wrap up our study on John chapter 8, verses 12 down through 30. We're talking about spiritual blindness. The Pharisees refused to believe that Jesus really was from God. Jesus had said, I'm not going to judge by human standards. And what he meant by that was, I'm not going to judge like you judge. You can't see the spiritual. He was really saying, I'm going to judge by spiritual standards, because this whole passage is about spiritual blindness. People who should see Jesus and refuse to. The problem is they don't realize how dangerous it is. The Pharisees had just flat out refused to see what was obvious and what was right in front of them, because it would mean they would have to change. They would have to give up stuff. They would have to give up authority, and they didn't want to give any of that stuff up. But look at what they lost because they wouldn't give it up. Verses 21 says this: Once more Jesus said to them, I am going away, and you will look for me, and you will die in your sins. Where I go, you cannot come. It's obvious when he says, I'm going away, he's talking about his death, his resurrection, and his going to the Father. But then he says, and you can't come. Why? Because you're refusing to go. Jesus is inviting you on the trip, and you're saying, absolutely not, I'm not coming. You don't want the salvation that Jesus is offering, so you won't go. You're too spiritually blind to see that he is the way, the truth, and the life. So you're going to stay put, and you're going to stubbornly stay lost in your sins. Verses 22 to 24 say, This made the Jews ask, will he kill himself? Is that why he says, where I go, you cannot come? But he continued, You are from below, I'm from above. You're of this world, I'm not of this world. I told you that you would die in your sins. If you do not believe that I am he, you will indeed die in your sins. It's another way of saying that these guys are spiritually blind. Even if you do consider yourself men of God, even if you do consider yourself religious teachers, you aren't. You're supposed to know the things of God. You're supposed to recognize them. But when the Messiah himself shows up, nothing. You refuse to see. You're not stupid, you're stubborn, and that's worse than stupid. You won't give stuff up. You'd rather stay in your sins and die that way. Verses 25 to 27 say this: Who are you? They asked. Just what I've been telling you from the beginning, Jesus replied. I have much to say in judgment of you. There it is. But he who sent me is trustworthy, and what I have heard from him, I tell the world. They did not understand that he was telling them about his Father. They did not understand. When they ask, Who are you? They're really saying, just who do you think you are? You don't judge us. We're Pharisees. We judge you. His answer to that is, I've been telling you all along who I am. But you choose to stay blind and you choose to be against God. A real question comes up now. Why would anyone choose that? Why would they cling so stubbornly to their disbelief and the anger when the Messiah is obviously right there in front of them? Why were they choosing to be against God? Again, they had a lot of authority. They had comfortable lives. They had power. They had prestige. They had the sense that they had earned their place with God, that God owed them something because of how awesome they were. They didn't want to give any of that up. And it was becoming more obvious that those things never did line up with God's plan. But they were so deep in denial at that point that they just decided, God must be wrong, not us. I hope they clung to and gave up. Let me say that again. I hope all that they clung to, all that they refused to give up, was worth it. Because you're not right with God then. This is the same danger too many people face today. Even though Jesus is light, there are people who refuse to open their eyes. Spiritual blindness will keep a person from ever seeing what's really there, that Jesus is Lord. I remember years ago reading about a study on intercessory prayer. That's simply where you pray for somebody else. And they had done this study on heart patients that were being prayed for. And the conclusion was prayer helps. It actually helps patients get better. Well, the cynics explained it away by saying, well, it's because their morale was boosted. You know, if you're a heart patient and you hear a bunch of people say, I'll be praying for you, that's encouraging and that helps. All right? People who ran the study came back with this. But there was a control group of patients who didn't know they were being prayed for. Nobody told these guys, we're praying for you. And those patients in the control group who didn't know they were being prayed for still got better. Okay, how do you answer that? Well, here was the answer of the cynics. Further studies are needed. Okay, there's no point in arguing with them. Spiritual blindness is sad. Jesus is the light. The thing about light is we can't see it if our eyes are shut tight. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.